Maria Elena Rodriguez had always been different from the other kids in her small Texas border town. While her classmates spent their evenings watching television or hanging out at the local diner, she was hunched over her father's old radio, taking it apart and putting it back together again. Her fascination with electronics and communication systems began when she was just 8 years old, sparked by her grandfather's stories about his work as a telegraph operator during World War II. Growing up in a family where her mother cleaned houses and her father worked double shifts at the local factory, Maria knew that her dreams of becoming an engineer seemed impossible to everyone around her. Teachers at her high school would shake their heads when she talked about applying to technical colleges. "Girls like you should focus on practical careers," her guidance counselor had said, sliding a brochure for cosmetology school across the desk. "Something more suitable." Even her own family struggled to understand her ambitions. During family gatherings, relatives would laugh when Maria talked about her plans to work with advanced communication systems. "She thinks she's smarter than everyone else," her aunt would whisper loud enough for Maria to hear. "Always has her nose in those technical books instead of learning how to cook or take care of a house properly." The mockery followed her everywhere. In her part-time job at the local electronics store, customers would ask to speak to someone who actually knows about this stuff when she tried to help them. Male co-workers would roll their eyes when she suggested improvements to their repair processes, even though her methods consistently worked better and faster. Despite the constant discouragement, Maria excelled academically. She taught herself programming languages from library books and spent countless hours learning about satellite communications and digital signal processing. Her bedroom became a makeshift laboratory filled with circuit boards, old computers, and communication equipment she had salvaged and repaired. When she graduated high school as valedictorian, the local newspaper barely mentioned her achievement. Instead, the front page focused on the football team's mediocre season and the homecoming queen's college plans. Maria's acceptance letter to the State University's engineering program was met with skeptical comments from neighbors who wondered how long she would last before coming back to reality. College brought new challenges, but also new opportunities. While some professors were supportive, many of her male classmates made it clear they believed she didn't belong. During group projects, they would assign her note-taking duties while dismissing her technical contributions. In lab classes, she often worked alone because other students assumed she would slow them down. The breaking point came during her junior year when Professor Davidson, known for his old-fashioned views, openly questioned whether Maria had received special treatment because of her gender and ethnicity. "Some people get opportunities handed to them," he said during a particularly brutal critique of her innovative project on secure military communications. "Others have to earn everything through merit alone." That comment stung because Maria had never received any special treatment. Every achievement had come through sheer determination and countless hours of study. While her classmates went to parties and joined fraternities, she worked late into the night in the engineering lab, perfecting her designs and expanding her knowledge. Her breakthrough came when she developed a new approach to encrypted satellite communications that could resist jamming attempts. The project started as her senior thesis, but the complexity and potential applications grew far beyond typical student work. Maria spent an entire summer testing and refining the system, often sleeping in the lab because she couldn't afford to rent an apartment near campus. When she presented her findings to the faculty review board, the response was lukewarm at best. Professor Davidson suggested that she must have received help from a more experienced engineer, while others questioned whether the system could actually work in real-world conditions. Only Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the few female professors in the department, recognized the significance of Maria's innovation. Dr. Chen encouraged Maria to submit her research to a national competition for emerging technologies in defense communications. The application process was rigorous, requiring detailed technical documentation and multiple rounds of review by experts in the field. Maria spent weeks refining her presentation and preparing for the possibility that she might have to defend her work against skeptical evaluators. The competition drew participants from prestigious universities across the country, including MIT, Stanford, and Caltech. When Maria arrived at the evaluation facility in Virginia, she felt completely out of place among candidates who had attended exclusive private schools and had families with connections in the technology industry. During the preliminary presentations, she overheard other participants discussing her background with barely concealed disdain. "Small state school? First-generation college student?" one young man said with a smirk. "Probably here to fill some diversity quota." I doubt she even understands the theoretical foundations of what she's claiming to have developed. The formal evaluation process was grueling. Expert panels grilled each participant for hours, testing not only their technical knowledge, but their ability to think quickly under pressure. Maria's turn came on the second day, and she could sense the skepticism in the room before she even began speaking. She started her presentation calmly, explaining the theoretical basis for her encryption method and demonstrating how it could maintain secure communications even under sophisticated electronic warfare conditions. As she progressed through her technical explanations, something shifted in the room. The evaluators began leaning forward, asking increasingly detailed questions that showed genuine interest rather than skepticism. When she finished her demonstration, the room was silent for several long moments. Then Dr. Harrison, a senior researcher from the National Security Agency, asked if she could reproduce certain aspects of her system in real time. For the next 3 hours, Maria worked at a computer terminal while the entire evaluation panel watched, successfully implementing her algorithms and proving that her innovations weren't just theoretical concepts. 2 weeks after the evaluation, Maria received a phone call that would change her life forever. Dr. Harrison's voice was formal, but carried an undertone of excitement as he explained that she had not only won the competition, but had caught the attention of people at the highest levels of government. Her communication system had applications that could revolutionize how military and intelligence agencies maintained secure contact in hostile environments. The invitation came with very little explanation. Maria was asked to report to a classified facility outside Washington, D.C., for what was described only as advanced technical training. The security clearance process took months, during which investigators spoke to everyone from her elementary school teachers to her part-time supervisors. Her family was bewildered by the attention, and many of her relatives became suspicious about what Maria had gotten herself involved in. When she finally arrived at the training facility, Maria discovered she was among only 12 people selected from across the entire country. The program was designed to fast-track exceptional individuals into roles supporting critical national security communications infrastructure. The other participants were intimidating in their credentials: PhD graduates from elite institutions, former military officers with advanced technical training, and researchers who had already published groundbreaking papers in top scientific journals. Maria felt immediately out of place. During the first week's introductory sessions, she learned that most of her fellow trainees had been recruited through exclusive networks and had family connections in government or defense industries. Several had attended the same prestigious preparatory schools and universities, creating an instant social dynamic that excluded her completely. The training director, Colonel James Mitchell, made his preferences clear from the beginning. He had served in military communications for 30 years and held traditional views about who belonged in sensitive technical roles. During individual meetings with each trainee, he questioned Maria extensively about her background and motivations in a way that felt more like an interrogation than an orientation. "I'm not sure how you ended up here," Colonel Mitchell said during their private session, reviewing her file with obvious skepticism. This program typically draws from a different caliber of institution. Are you certain you can handle the intellectual demands of what we're attempting to accomplish? The academic portion of the training was brutally intensive. Participants studied advanced cryptography, satellite communication protocols, quantum encryption methods, and emergency communication systems that could function during natural disasters or military conflicts. Maria threw herself into the coursework with the same determination that had carried her through college, often studying until dawn while her classmates seemed to manage the material with less effort. Her technical performance was excellent, but the social dynamics remained challenging. During group exercises, other trainees would form teams that somehow never included her. In the cafeteria, conversations would stop when she approached tables where her classmates were sitting. The isolation was subtle but persistent, making her question whether she truly belonged in such an elite environment. The practical training exercises were even more revealing. The program included simulations of communication emergencies, where trainees had to establish secure connections under extreme time pressure while dealing with equipment failures and hostile interference. Maria consistently performed at the top of the class during these exercises, but her successes were often attributed to luck or explained away by her classmates. "She probably memorized some specific procedures," whispered David Thornton, whose father was a Pentagon official and who had attended Harvard on a legacy admission. "Real expertise means being able to adapt when things don't go according to plan." The irony was that adaptation was exactly Maria's strength. Her childhood experience of repairing broken electronics with limited resources had taught her to think creatively when standard solutions failed. While other trainees became frustrated when expensive equipment malfunctioned, Maria would quickly devise workarounds using whatever materials were available. Colonel Mitchell remained unconvinced. During weekly evaluation meetings, he consistently rated Maria's performance as adequate despite objective evidence that she was excelling. His written comments suggested that her success was due to excessive preparation rather than natural ability, and he questioned whether she could perform effectively under real-world pressure. The breakthrough moment came during a particularly challenging simulation exercise. The scenario involved re-establishing communications for disaster relief operations after a major earthquake had destroyed conventional infrastructure. Each trainee was given different resources and assigned to coordinate with emergency response teams in a realistic but high-pressure environment. Maria was assigned the most difficult sector, an area where underground cables had been severed, cell towers had collapsed, and atmospheric conditions were interfering with satellite connections. While other trainees worked with more favorable conditions, she had to find ways to establish reliable communication links using only portable equipment and creative problem-solving. What happened next surprised everyone, including Maria herself. Instead of focusing only on her assigned sector, she began developing solutions that could benefit the entire operation. She created a mesh network using modified portable radios that allowed different teams to share communication resources. Her innovation not only solved problems in her sector, but improved connectivity across the entire simulated disaster zone. The exercise evaluators were amazed by her approach. While other trainees had followed standard procedures competently, Maria had essentially redesigned the communication architecture in real time to meet unprecedented challenges. Her solution was so effective that it became the template for future training exercises. Despite this clear demonstration of exceptional ability, the response from her fellow trainees was mixed at best. Some acknowledged her technical skills, but suggested that she had somehow gained unfair advanced knowledge of the exercise parameters. Others maintained that her success was an isolated incident that didn't reflect her overall capabilities. Colonel Mitchell's evaluation was particularly harsh. He noted that while Maria's technical solution had been effective, Her approach deviated from established protocols in ways that could be dangerous in real operational environments. He recommended that she receive additional supervision and questioned whether she was ready for independent assignments. The criticism was devastating, but also motivating. Maria realized that no matter how well she performed, certain people would always find reasons to doubt her capabilities. Instead of becoming discouraged, she decided to focus entirely on her own development and preparation for whatever challenges lay ahead. During the final month of training, rumors began circulating about major changes in national communication security protocols. Senior officials from various agencies visited the facility for classified briefings that excluded the trainees. The atmosphere became tense as everyone sensed that their training was building toward something significant. Maria continued working harder than anyone else, staying late in the laboratory to perfect her understanding of advanced systems. She developed additional improvements to her disaster communication network and began exploring applications for military environments where traditional communication methods might be compromised. Her dedication caught the attention of Dr. Rebecca Torres, a senior technical advisor who had been observing the training program for potential candidates for classified projects. Dr. Torres recognized that Maria's combination of technical innovation and resilience under pressure made her exactly the kind of person needed for the most challenging assignments. The morning that changed everything started like any other day in the training program. Maria arrived early at the laboratory, as was her habit, to review the day's technical exercises. The facility buzzed with unusual activity as security personnel conducted additional checks and senior officials arrived for what appeared to be an unscheduled meeting. Colonel Mitchell gathered the trainees for what he announced would be their final evaluation exercise. The scenario involved a complete breakdown of communication systems during a national security crisis. Each participant would be isolated in separate rooms and given access to different technical resources. Their job was to re-establish secure communications within a 4-hour time limit while dealing with simulated equipment failures and hostile interference. "This exercise will determine your final rankings and assignments," Colonel Mitchell explained with his usual stern demeanor. "Some of you will advance to critical positions. Others may find that this program wasn't the right fit for their abilities." His eyes lingered on Maria when he made that last comment, making his expectations clear. Despite months of excellent performance, he still viewed her as the most likely candidate for elimination from the program. The exercise began with each trainee receiving a different set of broken communication equipment and a unique crisis scenario. Maria's assignment was the most complex. She had to establish emergency communications for a situation involving multiple government agencies while dealing with equipment that had been deliberately sabotaged to simulate hostile interference. As she began working, Maria felt the familiar calm that came when she was focused on solving technical problems. The broken radio systems reminded her of the equipment she had repaired in her father's garage years earlier. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the complexity, she began methodically identifying what could be salvaged and how different components could be combined in unconventional ways. 2 hours into the exercise, she had not only repaired the primary communication system, but had created a backup network using spare parts from apparently irreparable equipment. Her solution included frequency hopping protocols that would make the communications nearly impossible to intercept or jam, going far beyond what the exercise had actually required. In the observation room, senior officials watched Maria's progress with growing amazement. Dr. Torres pointed out innovative techniques that Maria was implementing in real time, solutions that experienced engineers might take days to develop under normal circumstances. Even Colonel Mitchell had to acknowledge that her performance was extraordinary, though he still maintained his reservations about her overall suitability. What none of the observers knew was that Maria's communication system had attracted attention far beyond the training facility. Her innovations during the disaster simulation exercise had been incorporated into a classified project designed to upgrade national emergency communications. When government engineers tested her protocols during a recent crisis involving hurricane damage in Florida, the results had exceeded all expectations. Reports about the success of her system had reached the highest levels of government, including the office of the president himself. National Security Advisor Dr. Patricia Williams had briefed the president about emerging technologies that could protect American communications infrastructure, and Maria's work had been highlighted as a breakthrough development. As Maria completed her exercise 3 hours ahead of schedule, she was startled to hear her name announced over the facility's intercom system. "Maria Rodriguez, please report to the secure conference room immediately." The tone was formal and urgent, unlike the routine announcements that normally occurred during training. Walking toward the conference room, Maria wondered if she had somehow violated security protocols or made a mistake during the exercise. The hallway seemed longer than usual, and she could sense other trainees watching her through doorway windows as she passed their workstations. When she entered the conference room, Maria was surprised to find Colonel Mitchell, Dr. Torres, and several other officials she had never seen before. Their expressions were unreadable, and the atmosphere felt charged with significance. Colonel Mitchell gestured for her to take a seat at the conference table. "Maria, we need to inform you about some developments related to your work," Dr. Torres began. "Your communication protocols have been implemented in several real-world situations over the past month. The results have been remarkable, and your innovations have attracted attention from the highest levels of government." Before Maria could respond, a secure telephone in the center of the table rang with a distinctive tone that indicated a call from the White House Communications Office. Colonel Mitchell's face went pale as he realized what was happening. Dr. Torres answered the phone and then looked directly at Maria. "Maria, there's someone who wants to speak with you personally." The voice that came through the secure speaker was unmistakable, even though Maria had only heard it on television and radio broadcasts. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is President Harrison. I wanted to personally thank you for your contribution to our nation's security and to let you know that your work has already saved lives during recent emergency situations." The room fell silent as the president continued. "I've been briefed on your innovative communication systems and their applications during natural disasters and security situations. Your ability to create reliable communications under impossible conditions represents exactly the kind of American ingenuity and determination that makes our country strong." Maria found her voice, though it trembled slightly as she responded. "Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored that my work has been helpful." "Ms. Rodriguez, I understand that your path to this moment hasn't been easy and that some people have questioned whether you belonged in this program. I want you to know that true leadership means recognizing excellence regardless of where it comes from. Your innovations are being implemented across multiple agencies, and we're creating a new position specifically designed to utilize your unique talents." The president went on to explain that Maria would be offered a senior role in a classified project focused on next-generation communication security. Her responsibilities would include leading a team of engineers and working directly with cabinet-level officials on critical infrastructure protection. As the call concluded, the atmosphere in the conference room had completely transformed. Colonel Mitchell, who had spent months questioning Maria's abilities, now looked stunned as he realized the magnitude of what had just occurred. Other officials began congratulating Maria and asking about her availability for immediate assignment to high-priority projects. The news spread quickly throughout the training facility. Trainees who had dismissed Maria as unqualified suddenly wanted to associate themselves with her success. David Thornton, who had been particularly condescending about her background, approached her later that day with obvious embarrassment. "Maria, I owe you an apology," he said, unable to meet her eyes. "I made assumptions about you that were completely wrong. Your work is incredible, and I should have recognized that from the beginning." The transformation in how people treated her was dramatic, but also somewhat hollow. Maria realized that the same people who had mocked her potential were now eager to claim connection to her success. The validation was satisfying, but it also reinforced her understanding that she had always needed to prove herself through actions rather than words. Dr. B. Torres pulled Maria aside later that evening to discuss her new assignment. "What you've experienced here is unfortunately typical for people who don't fit traditional expectations," she explained. "The important thing is that you never let the skepticism diminish your confidence in your own abilities." Within a week, Maria was cleared for her new position and began working on classified projects that utilized her communication innovations on a national scale. Her systems were being implemented in everything from hurricane response operations to military deployments in challenging environments. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same techniques she had learned while fixing broken radios in her childhood bedroom were now protecting communications for the most sensitive government operations. The girl who had been told she wasn't smart enough for technical work was now leading teams of PhD engineers and briefing senior government officials on critical infrastructure security. Years later, Maria would look back on that phone call from the president as the moment when she finally understood that excellence speaks for itself, regardless of the skepticism it initially encounters. The people who had mocked her as useless had been proven wrong, not through arguments or explanations, but through undeniable results that spoke directly to the highest levels of government. Her story became an inspiration for other young people from similar backgrounds, proving that determination and innovation could overcome even the most entrenched prejudices about who belongs in elite technical fields.